Welcome to the 3Gs, the podcast where we dive into the world of fitness from three unique angles on three generations as we bridge the generation gap, explore diverse perspectives, and unravel the secrets of staying fit.
Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 3Gs podcast. My name is Cisco. I am the millennial.
My name is Michael. I'm the baby boomer.
And I'm Coach Kyle.
And today, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a very special, privileged guest to have over here because we're excited to have him on here. He is a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He is a functional and range and conditioning specialist. He's also certified with a precision nutrition, and he's also got his master's in kinesiology from Cal State Fullerton. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Dalton Sherwood with us.
All right, Dalton.
Welcome aboard, Dalton.
Yes, sir.
Hey, everybody, it's time to learn something.
We'll see.
Yes. So, Dalton, tell us a little bit about yourself right now. What are you currently doing?
Yeah, so I'm currently a business owner. Run my own personal training business. Been doing that now for almost 5 years now. So, kind of scaling back. Before I was a business owner, I was in grad school, Cal State Fullerton.
Yep.
At that time, I worked at Equinox as a private trainer. I was a grad assistant on campus, so I worked with men's and women's golf, helped tag team baseball, and cross country and middle and long distance at that time too. So got a really great exposure to the sport performance world at that time. Before that was at Cal State Northridge, did my undergrad in exercise science there, and spent a couple years in the weight room there as well. And then before that, went to community college just up the road here, Mount San Antonio College.
Oh, Mount Sac.
Yep. They're very premier sports school. So I ran track and field there, ran decathlon, and that was my main sport through high school, track and field. So yeah, here I am.
What events did you mainly do for track and field?
So decathlon has 10 of them.
Yes.
It's a lot of them. I would say do you want me to go through all 10?
Yes, please do,
So,
because we've been having a debate on this, on decathlons being the hardest sport in the Olympic.
I would say it's up there. I'd say in track and field, it is solely because you're doing 10 events. So the heptathlon's number 2 because they have their own discipline of 7 as well. So it's a 2-day event. So it goes 100-meter dash, long jump, shot put, high jump, then the 400. Then you come back day 2, 110 hurdles, discus, pole vault, javelin, and then you finish with the metric mile, the 1500. It is grueling, to say the least. It's hard to think that I did that at one point for a big chunk of my life.
See, so I did track and field in high school, and I only did long distance running. Mm-hmm. I just only did running. I didn't do any of the other stuff because they separated us. You're the runners, you go over there. You're the shot putters, you go over there. How do you train for that, combining all of those aspects?
I like to talk about the decathlon as like kind of being average at 10 events. If you can be average at 10, you do great because it's a point system. So, there is definitely coaches. There's multi-event coaches at schools. And their job is to wear the hat of every coach, pole vault coach, long jump, hurdles, all these different events. They have to understand to a certain extent what that event consists of. And, some schools will kind of delegate, hey, we're going to actually go with the throws coach and do stuff. So I did that a lot in community college. We worked with the direct event coaches specifically a lot. But, you only have X amount of hours in the day that you can practice. We were on the track for anywhere from 3 to 4 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And you have to, because you have to take the time to work on each event. So generally practices were broken up into anywhere from 2 to 3 events of work, mixed in with some running, mixed in with some weights. So learning how to balance all that, I think, was, that's the hardest thing that the coach has to undergo.
Jeez. Well, when I ran track in high school.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah. I ran the 100.
This is new to me.
You never said that. Yeah.
Yeah, I played football, ran track.
Was it when it was in yards or was it meters?
It was yards.
It was in yards. I know.
Sorry.
No, to be fair, yards.
Meters went up a little up a little. We were running yards at that
Running
time,
yards.
100 yards. So, our time was like, they're like 9-1, 9-2, where now it's like meters, it's like
A little bit farther out.
Yeah, but the decathlon players, man, they were everywhere. They were running with the track runners. They were practicing with the shot putters. They were practicing with the javelins. I mean, they were like everywhere.
We were best friends with everyone on the team because we spent time with everyone on the team. But like you were saying, the events are so separated.
Yeah, they are.
Throwers are over there the whole time. Jumpers are at the pit. Pole vaulters are at the pit. And we only interacted during like the meetings right before. And so it was great being a multi-athlete because you can go and we knew everyone on the team.
In your rotation.
It was it. It was fun.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, well, because it's funny. The separation is on the day of the actual meets. The runners would be over there. But like, if I knew I was hungry, I would go run and like chill with the pole vaulters because I know someone had at least a burger or something.
Throwers.
The throwers always had some sort of food around. I'd be like, dude, I'm fucking hungry. I'm hungry.
I remember going so you only run the decathlon, anywhere from 2 to 5 times a year, depending on how far you make it into postseason. So during individual meets, like if it's just a dual meet with another school, or if you're just at an invitational over the weekend, coaches would basically go through and say, okay, where can I put my multi-athletes to score the most points possible to get an overall team victory? So, that was kind of the beauty of being the Swiss Army knife on the team is, hey, Dalton, we need an extra pole vaulter. We don't need you to win, but we need you to get some points.
Just get some points.
Get some points. So we would, anywhere from 4 to 5 events in those meets. And it's still a long day. And, if I was throwing discus, for example, I might be on event 3 of the day and I got 2 more. And I'm just seeing, they got cake, muffins, candy.
I do.
They're sitting there sleeping.
Yeah.
They're just sitting on the
I
bench.
used to love the throwers.
I envied.
Well, it's
that.
Yeah, it's like that in powerlifting, man. They're like gobbling down
Yeah.
Yep.
cake, candy, cookies, and
You got a lot of
all
time
this
between your
sugar.
lifts.
Yeah, and they're just trying to get that energy level back up, and it's like that in track. They would eat a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
Stuff that
was
had a
just-
lot
just
of
part of
sugar
the
and
culture.
stuff.
You
Yeah,
just-
Now, is there one that you
it's-
excelled in the most?
Was there one that I excelled in?
Yeah.
I would say
Or do you have a favorite?
my favorite was javelin.
Javelin.
Love javelin. Very just primal instinct event. You just get a spear and say, I'm going to huck it as far as possible.
Yeah.
It's fun. Full sprint, just throw it as far as possible. And it's beautiful when you just see it in the air and you're just like, I did that. You know what I mean?
That's a perfect spiral.
Yeah. So I'd say that was a favorite. Pole vault was another favorite. It took a very long time to understand the technique behind the vault. It's a very tricky event. Probably took me a full 3 seasons to learn how to fully invert. And
How
And that's where you got
high-
injured, right?
How the average height would be
at what level?
your level?
So the college level, I would say 16, 17, 18 feet. You go to the Olympic level, you're, the guys now are just
19,
20.
That's insane,
They're up
dude.
there, but they're vaulting with 5 meter long poles. These things are very, very long, and you're going in a full sprint. So
Yeah.
if you're doing everything right, that thing just flings you up, and it's really crazy when you're doing it. And there's not much you can really think about other than like the reps that you've done, because you're not really actively thinking. Everything happens so fast. Running full sprint, plant the pole. Next thing you know, you're upside down trying to flip over the bar.
You ever snap a pole?
I have. It sounds like a gunshot goes off.
That's crazy.
It's a very terrifying, and like you feel so helpless in the air because you don't know where you are. Your orientation's all
just
thrown off,
falling.
and you're just floating. You're like, I just hope I make it on the mat
And
at
then
some
you
point.
wonder where the rest of the pole's going.
Yep.
'Cause it's
So
like,
so depending on where you snap it, you're either really lucky or something's gonna happen. So the first time I snapped the pole, it was my bottom arm. It was right around where my hand was. So it's a bunch of fiberglass on that pole. So my whole bottom of my hand, my wrist, my forearm just was covered in fiberglass, and it probably took about 2 weeks to fully push it out. Yeah, and then when you're going through the motion as you're planting, you're driving your hands down towards the hip. So you're still doing that motion when it snaps because that's just what you have to do.
Yeah.
So then I took the other half of the pole that was broken in between my hands and just sliced my thigh.
Goodness. Damn.
Because that's just what you're
With the
supposed to
momentum
do. You know what I
of it.
mean? I'm like, I didn't
Yeah.
know anything else to do at that time.
Right.
So I landed on the pit, thankfully, and I just look and it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I'm bleeding, and you have, depending on where you are in the meet. So usually if you miss a bar, you have it's either 2 or 3 minutes between your next jump. But if you're the only one in the competition, everyone's missed their bar and you're the last one, and you're just trying to see how high it can go because you technically won, you get 5 minutes. So
Okay.
I've had enough time at that time to, get some treatment, get a new pole I've never used before. And they are, there's a weight associated with the pole. So you'll see on there like 185, 190, 195. So I was at the time 195 vaulting with a pole that had 200 on it. So it's a little bit more stiff. And then the next pole up was a 205. And so it's just more stiff. And I've never even touched it before. Hadn't even had tape on it. It was a brand new pole. So my coach is taping it up. I'm getting treatment done, and he's just like, look, do you want to go for another jump? I was like, sure. So they call it taking it up. So you kind of, you run down the runway and you plant it, but you're not going through with the full inversion. You're kind of just getting comfortable with what the pole feels like in your hands. So you basically, you get the full bend, and then you kind of can just back out and you can just pop over. So I did that one time because I knew I had 2 jumps left. Jump number 2, I was running down. I was probably about 5 steps away from planting. That's when my hamstring went out. So
Was that the same one that you sliced?
that was the same one that I sliced.
Damn.
That leg was
Jeez.
destroyed. So,
Crazy.
I think it was a byproduct of having so much adrenaline at the time that I was doing movements that I was not normally doing. I was running at a faster pace. I was moving the bar at a quicker pace. I was gripping it more. So all these variables came into ultimately my hamstring giving out. And it's interesting because I've blacked out that whole day because it was a traumatic experience. It was the most traumatic thing that's ever happened. I've had concussions, and it's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a little bit different when it's something that's like muscular like this and you're sprinting. You know what I mean? So next thing I wake up, or kind of remember coming back to consciousness on the ground, and my hamstrings just every color of the rainbow. Jeez. Training staff's right there. I hear my mom in the stands. That's funny. I can always hear her in the stands, no matter where I am, what event I'm doing. I can just hear her, and she's, I can just remember her freaking out. Then
Yeah, you can hear all moms in the
you
stands.
can,
Come on.
Yeah.
no matter where
moms,
you are.
moms are the number one fans.
Mom, number one fan,
loudest.
no matter you win, lose, or draw.
They went to every meet, and
loudest.
I thank them for doing that.
And,
But
that's crazy.
yeah, so that was my last experience with track and field. I was at a point where, studies were getting much harder. You're getting into those 300, 400 level classes at school, and at that point, I just wasn't necessarily doing it for myself anymore. I was wasn't feeling as much. The practices were not fun. Wasn't sleeping well. Wasn't getting great nutrition. And all these like pillars of happiness and being content. And at that time, as a young adult, were off. So I kind of took that as a sign to say I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna go kind of focus on studies instead. And glad I did.
On to
Well, the recovery, man. How long did the recovery take for all of that?
So that was to be back to full strength. It was around 10 months. It was around 10 months. So it was a very difficult time mentally. You go from being able to practice and compete and move your body in any position possible and, throw weights around the weight room, and you go to just being stiff, using crutches, barely being able to move on an upright bike, and, there's the soft tissue work that they're doing and all these things to start to strengthen it was just so painful. And normally, this is no problem for me to do. I can do this all the time.
So that's crazy because we just previously did an episode about mental health and working out and whatnot, and I think we touched about how injuries can really mess up
Totally.
mental thing. Like, what was going through your head mentally with all that stuff, man?
It's a great question. I ended up working, was very fortunate on campus. We had access to sports psychology, and I was never, I've done psychology classes before in undergrad, and from the context of sports and coming back from injuries, like that was never discussed. It was kind of your general principles of psychology are discussed in classes. So I was fortunate enough to be able to work with someone on campus a couple times a week to kind of just talk through it. It was really just a big mental barrier at that time. Because like I was just saying, like you're so used to being able to do all these things and it's taken from you. Yeah. And you feel very helpless. You feel like, everything around you is coming down because when you have that identification of sports so much ingrained in you.
Well, sports psychology is like big now.
It's very big.
It's practically bigger than training.
Yeah.
Because they get their mindset, and they're good with coaches. With sports psychologists, the coaches as well as athletes,
You have to look at the sports that require so much precision.
We didn't have that back in my day.
No, you didn't even know what a psychologist was.
I sure didn't, man.
Yeah.
Back in my day, we just injured, get out there and play.
Figure it out.
That's the way it was. It's just amazing what they do now, the work that they do now.
Yeah, you look at like golf, for example. It's a very tough sport. Mentally,
it's half the sport.
It's half. I'd argue a little bit more because those guys, they know how to swing a club. They know how to play the course. They play it for, if it's in a 4-day tournament, you're playing it multiple times. You know what to look for, but it comes down to, can you keep yourself together
that's
while you're doing it, and that's the mental part.
The course is half the game. Okay, the mental part is the next, because you're going like what? 36 holes.
We were playing full 72.
2 days, you're going 36. 2 more. Another day, you're going another 18. So you're doing like 48, something like that.
Yeah, I think of 70. Yeah. I think it's 72.
Yeah, totally.
Holes is the full.
And to keep your composure through 18 holes.
You have people watching
crazy.
you. Yeah. You have cameras on you.
Yeah.
You look at the professionals. They have a camera crew just posted right behind them. If I have one person looking at me in my backswing, I'm done. That's why I hate going to the driving range. I just can't. I'm like, someone just saw me shank this ball so bad. I need to go home.
A couple of my friends were playing skins, right? And I had like a 2-foot putt. And it was like $50 involved in it, right?
There's money involved.
Man, I was so nervous I missed it.
Shaking.
And I'm sitting there thinking about, man, these guys got like $1 million hanging on a 5-foot putt, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, But yeah, it's mentally a tough game.
Very tough.
You golf pretty regularly, right, Mike?
What's that?
You golf pretty regularly, right?
I used to. I don't now, but I got my clubs right back of me,
You're ready whenever.
It's getting harder to golf now, Even when I ride a cart.
Jeez. Just doesn't move or what?
No, it moves. I just got to keep getting in and out.
You got to do more cars.
So then you said your rehab took about 10 months. It was a real big mental, like all that, What was the breakthrough, and what was your next pretty much venture after recovering?
My breakthrough was I discovered just the weights. Like I discovered a passion and love for just being in the weight room, lifting, clanging as like I was 19 at the time. So back when you can just take pre-workout all the time and have nothing but just a great pump, and you go home and can sleep 10 hours a night. I remember just turning that switch and being so motivated to just like get in the car and drive to, it was a Fitness 19 at the time. I was like just going to start training and being so motivated to go there and just start lifting. And that was my next venture that came from that, because I had to sit there and be like, I want to be able to perform and still compete. And I was so used to having that more or less an individual sport of track and field. It is a team sport in that context, but you're still, there's no one else helping you in that sense, unless you're on a relay.
So let me ask you, man, how old are you now?
I'm 29.
And you started it when you were 19.
I've been around weights and training since freshman year of high school. I was very fortunate.
So you're like maybe 15. Yeah. I started when I was 14.
I think it was around 14 myself.
14.
Yeah.
And I like you had a passion for it. I lifted all the time. It was just something I loved to do. And it gives you a positive attitude.
Sure.
You know, when you're lifting, how does that, you're a pretty big guy. All right. You are. All right. And what does that do for you? I mean, you know, your
Pumps.
total attitude.
It teaches a lot of core principles in life. I think, you know, patience,
Yeah.
consistency.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, understanding that things take time. You know, it's really tough to do anything in this life, cutting steps,
It's a,
and in a short period of time. And, you know, as I learned more about the body, you know, going through exercise physiology and movement anatomy and biomechanics, all these like really cool classes that teach you how to be the best version of yourself, it only instills that principle of like, these things take time. And if you understand that you cannot cut any corners, and as you go about this process, you're going to find more out about yourself, you're going to be very successful doing that.
Yeah.
You know
Oh,
what I
dude,
mean?
that was perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's true, because it's like, I think it's one of those where I always tell a lot of my clients, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's a process.
a process.
It takes a while and whatnot. And I feel like that's one of those things that you nailed it on the dot. Dude, I agree with you 100%. Discipline, patience, I think is the most important thing that I've learned
Sure.
from weight training or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
and I think it's unfortunate today's world is very based off of like instant results, instant gratification. We
That's
have
it.
that. We have the
Exactly.
influence of social media. You know what I mean? I'm guilty of it myself. Like when, you know, I get down on myself a lot if I'm not constantly putting this content out for people to absorb, or, you know, I'm not learning these new things at a fast rate. You know what I mean? And, you know, there's the rise of like the Ozempic craze. People want to lose weight at a much faster rate now because they have access to these things.
Yeah, what's that? The pen? Does the pen that people do?
Yeah. It's that little like
yeah.
insulin needle basically that,
But that I heard that's a temporary thing. You know, you do it, but then if you stop and you continue eating, you're just going to gain it all back.
the problem is it doesn't change the habit.
Right.
That-
And,
yeah.
and that's what needs to be done at the end of the day, is that is simply a Band-Aid for your habit, so you're unwilling to sit down and assess and say, I need to do something about this. And that's ultimately going to make the change that you need. So people look at it from two ways. It's like, I can get that thing now, and that's going to motivate me to then start, you know, doing those changes and habit changes that I want to do. It's not really an approach that I like to use. You know, that whole thing came from the diabetes world.
Yeah.
Because that was needed for diabetics. So that stops, you know, those cravings for hunger, the desire to go back for, you know, seconds and thirds and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean,
Well, it's crazy because we did an episode about intermittent fasting, and we were talking about when would be a good time to use it, and all three of us, we agreed we're not real big fans of it
of intermittent fasting as a whole.
as a whole,
Okay.
of how it's being portrayed. So
Sure.
because our producer Jose is one that actually portrays it in a positive way. What we've come to find out the more common way is, oh, I gotta lose, 20 pounds. Let me just do intermittent fasting. They lose 20 pounds like that, and they go back to regular eating.
Sure.
And I think the main thing that the common denominator that all three of us came up with in that episode was we talked about the habits. We would rather teach you habits
Right.
than teach you something quick and instant.
Right. Right.
But there are people, like I said, our producer in the back who has been doing it for a while and has been using it consistently. And I know he's lost over 100 pounds on that.
great.
But now it's a habit for him.
Right.
So
It's not the intermittent fasting itself.
Yeah.
That is merely a tool in the toolbox.
Yes.
That's
You know
what I
I
said.
mean?
I said
It's
it was a tool.
It's a tool in the toolbox, and if you understand that, that just helps you create the habit, and it's not the actual thing itself. Intermittent fasting. There's nothing fancy about it. It just
Right,
gives
right.
you structure. It says, okay, if you use your 12 to 8, eating window, it's like I know between these 8 hours, this is my opportunity to eat, and I cannot do it on those other 16.
Yeah.
It's like a way for you
I
to be in a
actually
deficit.
do it doing intermittent fasting now. I am. But earlier, I did fasting for a week to detox, to cleanse my body out, because I had a mini stroke back in 2001 from the uses of steroids. And they were all injectables. So the doctor said the best thing to do for me was to fast, to try to detox your body the best you can. And so I did it like for a week. Man, that was crazy. I was weak. I was almost hallucinating.
Let's say lethargic, probably hallucinating at the time.
Yeah, you don't have food for a week. That's hard.
Yeah.
Was it just only water that you were doing?
Water, detox solution, and that was it for a whole week.
Do you remember what was in the detox solution?
And it was green. I can tell you it was green. And
Probably some like essential micronutrients or something just to keep
I
you.
don't really remember, that it was. I know it was a green
Got it.
detox, and it just did it for a whole week and cleansed me out.
See, but you did it more for a cleanse.
For what?
You did it more for as a cleanse, right? Because the whole theory of a cleanse is replacing dead cells with new ones, pretty much.
Just trying to cleanse everything out and try to,
It wasn't as a way to lose weight.
wasn't to lose weight.
Yeah.
It was just to try
Just to
cleanse
prep you
everything.
for the process of eventually losing weight.
But it was the hardest thing ever,
Sure.
for not eating a whole week.
I mean, we live in one of the best time ever as humans. You know what I mean? We have grocery stores walking distance. Back if we go, flashback thousands of years ago, we went days and days and days without eating as we were hunter gatherers. And so the body, over time as evolution came, we adapted to that stressor that we might not eat for 3-4 days, and that's where we got really efficient at taking in whatever food we can eat at the time. You know what I mean? So it's interesting as we're kind of coming full circle to that in society now, of like, we're going to restrict eating. And it's like what we did for a very long time already. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. Social media plays such a big role in training now, because we didn't have social media back there. We just had a radio. And working out was so easy to do. Now, you have people texting and doing this and doing that and finding things out so quickly.
Sure. So what was your first resource of training? Like, was it like magazines?
It was magazines. It was radio.
Like Arnold's Encyclopedia Bodybuilding.
Arnold was a big guy then. And Lou Ferrigno. Man, we had these magazines. And we sit there reading them. Now you go on the computer, your phone, and you're looking at all this stuff going on.
It's a bit of sensory overload at times.
We didn't have no phone, so we couldn't. The phone was like that big, and so.
Yeah. No, his resource back then was actually lifting with them.
Yeah.
Lifting with gel mates too and whatnot.
Yeah, but it was the best way though to me, because all you could do was lift.
Yeah.
And just train. And
well, everything back then was anecdotal. It was, it was trial and error. What works for me?
It was trial and error.
And so the guys that were super successful at the time that were getting in the magazines, they were just putting what worked for them.
That was
this is my chest day. This is my leg day. And people took that and go, I'm going to emulate this to a T. You know what I mean? And it works. You know what I mean? That's like we were saying off camera, that is, you guys paved the way. You were the beta testers for what we know and do now.
Because the one thing we found out back when using roids was it was actually a cancer medication for cancer patients to strengthen them, to be able to do more.
Sure.
And stuff. So, we took that and said, okay, it's going to work here. And that wasn't I don't think science the way it is now.
No. It's evolved much differently now.
Everything's evolved much differently. And like I said, it's more of how you just said. You guys were like the trial and errors. We learned from you guys, both the good and the bad. And that's the beauty of it. It's like, okay, you got these generations and whatnot. And there's always that time to like, all right, how do we fill in that bridge to make sure we learn from you guys as well, too? And so...
we were trial and error back then, and, we kind of like paved the way. And, I sit back and look at it now and I'm like, wow, man, he was just telling me, I didn't find out about SORMs until I talked to him. One day I was thinking, because you ever tried that? I go, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, we have these like the evolution of the ways to not take an actual needle. You know what I mean? It's like pro-hormones were such a thing back in the 2010s, 2012 era, And then it evolved to the SARMs now. It's like, we take all the bad out of the testosterone, we put it in a pill, and it's like,
that's what they say.
We have no clue what the long-term effects of that stuff's going to be.
This was all bad new until
they actually
brought it
have
up.
a higher risk of heart attack and stroke in using that. From what I
you have to look
what
at
I've read. I've read up on it since Kay told me about it. I was curious on what it was, so I started reading up on it, and I'm like, wow, people they're taking that now, and I heard it's so easy to get.
I mean,
fairly.
I mean, to a point up till recently, I think the FDA cracked down pretty well on getting it from like random websites. But you can go on Reddit and people will plug links all the time. Like the bodybuilding forums on Reddit are still prevalent than ever. But at the time, probably up till a year ago, you can go on supplement websites and get whatever SARM that you want. But like you were saying about the side effects of it.
Oh man.
We don't know what it's going to be like in 10 years'
This is
time.
probably like the new wave of
it's a
new wave.
It's a new wave.
Actually, I feel it's stronger from
what you took.
The way that you
aromatize it much quicker than
a
standard
growing. I heard it's actually stronger, which doesn't surprise me. But you do get side effects.
I have personally done it, and I'm happy to share what that experience was like.
Let's hear it.
It was a RAD 140 cycle. That's, I would say, in the SARM world, that is
kind of like the trend.
It's the one you want to get the biggest. You take RAD 140.
Yeah. Was this your first cycle? You started with that?
Yes.
Oh, wow, jeez.
Yeah.
How long ago?
That was 5 years ago, 2019.
I'm taking that.
Yeah. Probably close to 35 pounds I put on at that time. And, it was, I at the time didn't know anything about it. I just was recommended to take it. I was in a period where I was like, I'm just going to go for it. Why not? And did the little bit of research that I did was, your range of daily consumption is around 10 to 30. I think it's milligrams in that. And so it's just in a pill form. And so I built out a protocol of kind of just like pyramid up, hold it for a couple weeks, pyramid back down. And I think it was a 14-week.
How many grams per pill was it?
So I think the pills were in milligrams, if I remember correctly. One pill was a 10 milligram dose. So it was just a pill a day. This little thing that you take.
It's just one a day or two a day?
One a day. So, it depends. So I scaled up.
Dosages, like he said.
I scaled up. So I did, kind of like a loading, like introductory phase of 10 just to see how the body acclimates to it. And I tried to monitor as much as I could with how I was feeling, how my numbers were in the gym, how was I sleeping, did my mood or hunger change
every single day.
Yeah.
Really?
So
any side effects?
Because you're a lab rat.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
That's what.
It's tough to say if I have any, like my blood panels, when I get them, the only thing that pops up is my liver enzymes. It's the only thing that consistently pops up that is deemed like a red flag, in my opinion, and also the opinion of the provider that's doing the blood panels. So the research I've done on that is really came down to, if you have no other biomarkers that are showing, stress in the liver itself, a lot of people have made inferences that it's just from the training. So the heavy.
Do it in a cycle way, and do you cycle it, or do you?
Yeah, you can. It's definitely not recommended to be on it all the time.
All year.
Yeah, like you would if you're on like testosterone replacement therapy. Yeah. Like that low dose, weekly thing, you can be on it for as long as you'd like to.
Oh, yeah. You
but
shut down your. Huh?
You do it?
I did it.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't do it no more, but I tried it out back then for sure.
Wow.
I tried that. I tried LGD.
Yeah.
I started with MK, the Osterine, which is supposed to be like the mildest one, and then I went up to LGD and RAD.
So how does all that, Mike, compare to how you used to do it back in the day?
Well, we go pill form, orals. It was, like each one was like 5 milligrams or whatever, a little like Dianabol. We take like 5, and then we do it in the morning, and then we take a second one in the evening.
So you only ran things for 8 weeks.
But the thing about it, this was the problem that the doctors told me that your kidney allows so much and kicks out the rest, and that goes to your stomach, and it just drops to the bottom, starts to weigh out. So see, there's our way was trial and error.
Yeah.
Okay. And then from there, I went to injectables. And I just did that like 10 years. And side effects on that are different.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know, you have a doctor that you go to, or, you know.
For just like general blood work?
Well, for anything you're taking, or.
I'm not currently taking anything,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, what did you at that time?
No.
Or, no?
No, that was all just.
We did have a doctor.
So you had a doctor.
Yeah,
then.
he was out in the valley.
He would just write scripts for whatever you wanted, basically.
Well, he would teach you how to inject, where to inject. You know, he was more of a decabolin type of kind of doctor to make you gain and stuff. But he would go through your blood work. He goes through all that with you and stuff.
So he would check it.
I figured it'd be more science now that, you know, this was like a long time ago.
So then, but then you said that's why you got the stroke, though, right?
Yeah.
From use of that.
Yep. I used it a lot.
Okay.
You know, because it wasn't really in control. You know, it wasn't against the law.
Yeah, and that's. Well, go.
I think you get to a point mentally where you're chasing. You know what I mean? When you're in that game for so long.
Yeah.
And you start going down that route,
you see other guys.
Yep.
And, you know, you talk amongst a group, and you see these guys getting so big, and, you know, you're like, man, how you do that?
Like my pace of growth is not the same as
you know,
yours.
it's not why.
Doing?
You know, you ask him, what are you doing? You know, I'm stacking 3. I'm doing 3, and I'm doing an 8-week cycle twice a day. You know, I'm like, you know, you take that and you sit down and say, okay, I can do this, I can do that, and you try to manage it from there.
Sure.
And stuff, but it was crazy back then. You know, now that I sit back and think about what's going on now, and I listen to
more
I listen
controlled.
to people, and I'm like, wow, man, you know, it's much more control than back then.
Well, like I said, the beauty is everything's been studied. I mean, we've had this debate about creatine also. You know, you weren't in favor of creatine that much, and then we had Jack, and I believe you and Jack both are
big advocates.
Yeah, big
Very
advocates.
Big advocates.
Right? And I mean, what would you say is the main difference on creatine that we know now compared to what maybe Mike knew in the 90s?
I think the premise and rise of creatine at that time really started with the context of just growth. You know, I can get stronger. It's feeding this specific energy system that is the most prevalent when we're doing these heavy bouts of training. You know, first couple reps, if we're doing heavy deadlifts, like this energy system, the phosphocreatine system is so in charge of getting you to do that work. So if you load it with an exogenous source, it's only going to help with your stores and recover at a faster rate, so you can get those stores back to a position to just get you going in the lift again. So you're not having to rest as long. So there's like this efficiency component that comes in with it too. Fast forward to now, there's a ton of research now on the cognitive benefits, the slowing of Alzheimer's, sleep benefits. There's, you know, I was talking to you guys off camera. There's a researcher, Dan Garner, and he is, I would say, like the best resource to go to for the benefits of creatine in all these different contexts. And it's really cool to see it because it is one of the most, I would argue, the most research supplement out there right now. And it's great to see it being used in these different, you know, contexts with people that aren't just using it for lifting performance. That's already been well studied, and we know roughly that 5 gram range is the range to stay in. And we also know that
5 grams. You heard that?
Well, see, my lifter said, you know, why can't I take creatine? I said, no, you don't need to take creatine. You don't need it. You know, he comes along. Oh, yeah, my lifter, she takes creatine. She loves it. And I'm like, oh, God, you know. The next thing I know, you know, I had to put her on creatine, you know.
There is something to be said about when you first take it, the performance that you get when you're lifting. It is very noticeable. And, you know, I'm even with clients that do not have, you know, muscle growth related goals specifically, that's something I will still plug because we know of all these other benefits.
Now, will you decline at one point?
In what sense?
If you're taking creatine and you go to that peak, is there a declining point of that?
I wouldn't say that there is, because I would put it in the same category of supplementation as like a daily. So like your multivitamins, your proteins, your fish oil. Like I put that creatine in that same box.
Really?
There's no like point of diminishing returns.
No. I mean, not that has been shown in research to what I have seen.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So just increasing it.
So I would just keep it consistent.
Just the same
5
thing as a
grams a day
multivitamin.
forever.
Just like,
You're not going to take like 5 multivitamins.
yeah, like you wouldn't scale up from 3 multivitamins to 4 to 5
Yeah.
over time. You're just going to keep that 2, for
Okay.
example.
Consistent on it.
Yeah.
So I think Jack went through that pretty good. It's just
Yeah,
like,
he
just
did.
get your 5 in, and let's just leave it there and just
So
kind of focus on other
you said
things.
you break it out with your clientele. What type of clientele are you currently working with right now?
Yeah. I have every type of clientele, and I love it. So I have former athletes that want to still move like an athlete. I have, the successful businessman and businesswoman that, they're at the desk all day, but they still like to play golf, for example.
Yeah.
And we'll do golf performance and also mobility with them. Up to, females in their mid to late 70s that just want to not be in pain and want to make sure that they're strong enough to stop a fall, for example. So my range of clientele is very vast, and I'm very fortunate to be working with everyone.
So me personally, I do have like a handful of clients over their 60s. And you did say something about creatine. You actually do recommend creatine for them as well too?
I look at the cognitive benefits
Okay.
in that context. So the performance that you can get in the brain when you take it,
Really?
as you are in those later ages, it's only going to help you, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt you in any way. So,
Right.
and I look at, if you look at family history and you have Alzheimer's that runs in the family, that's probably something I'm going to recommend too. So that's personally in my family that does run in there. So that's a staple for me.
Damn. Okay.
Now I have a question, because you did mention something about you learning the importance of year-round training.
Okay.
What is the importance, or what do you think is the importance of that?
Importance of year-round training in what context?
You said, let me pull up that. You said, because you were a collegiate athlete and realized you could get a competitive advantage by studying kinesiology, and had some really good coaches in high school plus college that taught you the importance of year-round
Training, yeah.
Yeah.
So that in that context, like with the sport that I ran,
just for sport.
you know what I mean? Like you cannot start in November when your season starts. If you're doing indoor seasons, mid-January, February, up until July, if you're doing postseason. So it's hard to go day one November. Like you're going to stay year round, but we're planning, a general prep phase, specific prep phase, introduction to preseason, mid-season, postseason. Like there's so many different things you can work on in a year-round basis that it just makes sense to do it.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, you're just going to go run, with no goal over summertime. I'll see you in August. There was a plan set.
Right.
And being exposed to that at an early age only taught that importance to myself and the teammates that I had around. So I was very fortunate to have some coaches early on that, they gave me stuff to do. They gave me homework.
Right.
So
you're going microcycles instead of like micro.
Yeah, you're gonna work on these things until I see you 4 months time from now. So, and it was noticed if you did do it or you did not do it. I remember very vividly a time during winter break, we had this pretty rigorous off-season running plan. And, the first week back, the hardest week of that plan was that last week before we met back up for the spring semester. And if you were not doing the stuff up to that point with the times that were expected on that last week, he would know instantly if you were doing that training or not. And that first week back, we just repeated it.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm gonna pop quiz you guys. Did you do the training?
Yeah.
Can you get the times? And it was very clear who did it and who didn't do it.
Right.
So that really brought home, the importance of it every time.
But I feel like that idea definitely spans with like just any type of training in general,
Sure.
right? Like with your general public training clients, like
Yeah.
it's important for them to stick with it long term if they want to
it's
see
not
the results.
seasonal.
That's
and they
not
like
seasonal.
to think that it's seasonal sometimes.
Absolutely.
They'll come
You
to
know?
me, my 2 time a weeks will come to me in April and say, can we do 4? I'm happy to, no problem. But I would like, my MO with every client I work with is no matter how frequently we train, I still want to give you stuff to do for homework.
Right.
I call it homework in that sense.
Absolutely.
Whether it's mobility, whether it's check-ins with nutrition, whether it's other training sessions at another gym, I'm going to give you that. That's the benefit of working with me. And we're not just the 2 hours a week that I see you in person. You're not just paying for that.
It's
You're
not
paying
enough,
for the 7-day-a-week exposure.
Exactly.
Because I want you to understand that it's not 2 hours that's going to get you that end goal. We have to do all these other things
100%.
the rest of the week.
Now I'm gonna try to say this word. I've always had trouble saying it. Hypertrophy. Is that it? Was that right?
Wow. It's the first time saying it properly.
Strength training. What is your? Because I actually don't. I look at it. I don't really see the difference, but there is, because strength training is the power.
So I would say there's a component of skill involved with strength training, because the adaptations that come from strength training are very neural. So it's very much with the signaling that comes in. It's the brain telling through the nervous system to the muscle, you can use all of this muscle to do the job. Because if you say you take someone who's never trained strength training before, and we're in their first period of doing sets of 4, sets of 3, and they've never done that before. The body does not know how to do it. It's a skill. So as you repeat it, the adaptation that comes from it is things like, the ability to recruit more muscle, the firing rate of the muscle contraction, the signaling from the brain to the nervous system to the muscle is sped up as well. So those come from strength training. And as you do it more, you're more comfortable. The body realizes, oh, I'm not in danger because I'm lifting this heavy thing. We have all these receptors that are sensitive to tension on the muscle. And what they will tell the brain to do if they do not have those adaptations is to shut the muscle off. So that's where you see a lot of people just fail so early on when they're doing strength training, because their body is trying to protect them at the end of the day.
Makes sense.
So, from the strength context, it's very neural in that sense. We're just learning how to talk to the muscle and do it at a faster rate.
So it's communicating from the brain to the muscle.
Correct.
Basically on strength training.
Yes.
Okay.
And then on the side of hypertrophy or hypertrophy, they play off of each other. We need a bigger muscle generally to also lift heavy too. You can go about it trying to minimize muscle, like powerlifters, for example. They have to stay at certain weight classes.
Yeah.
But still have to express strength that is, at these super freak levels, for example. So there's a balance of having to do both. But it just depends on what you want to do. It just depends on what your goal is. So if someone comes and says, I want to grow more muscle, we're gonna spend a little bit of time in strength training, but we're also gonna do a lot of hypertrophy training too. So my general principles of training is undulating periodization. So generally we spend a very finite period, anywhere from 4 to 6, 7 weeks on strength qualities, and another 4 to 6, 7 weeks on hypertrophy qualities. Yeah. And we just undulate between those two because they do play off of each other.
So a bodybuilder would be more that side than strength training side.
There's so many people that respond differently.
A powerlifter would be more on the strength training.
Powerlifter, definitely. There's periods of time for powerlifting that I would say that hypertrophy is needed, but I would say if you were to put a 0 to 100, 90% I would say is on that strength quality. 10% is probably in the.
And then at times the bodybuilder would have to go to strength training.
Yeah.
To get stronger.
The body is very good at adapting to the environmental stressor that is placed on it. So if we're spending time in just hypertrophy,
it's going to plateau.
So we have to give it a new stimulus somehow, some way. So that's where it can become a very useful tool in that context to spend some time in strength training. Right. Because if we're spending time in those lower rep ranges, it goes back to those adaptations, those neural adaptations I was talking about earlier. When we go back to training hypertrophy, the body is so equipped to recruit the muscle fast. And so we can we can start to actually see hypertrophy benefits even at those lower rep ranges too. So they definitely play off of each other. And so I'm a big advocate personally of doing both. I don't think any.
So they're just not 1 and 1. It's more 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
You right?
Yeah. I think the hypertrophy game has been the big talking point recently on social media and research of like,
You see a lot of bodybuilders
trying to find the perfect rep range, the
Right.
perfect amount of sets per week, the amount of volume for a muscle, like what is the optimal amount for that. And it's crazy. Like I love going back at like the studies that we did and like the research we did in school and seeing how that's evolved even from, we finished grad school. I'm talking like Jack and I, for example, like we finished grad school in 2020 and it's 4 years later and we're already seeing things that are different.
That's
You know what I
great,
mean? So
yeah.
like, I think the thing that sticks out is like the hypertrophy rep range, and like in the book, it's like 6 to 12.
Yeah.
1 to 5 is strength, 6 to 12
Right.
is hypertrophy, and 15 above is endurance. Like that
Yeah.
was
that was the general.
that was it.
Yeah.
Like your textbooks say that. And we have this understanding now in hypertrophy that the rep range can be
pretty much
5
anything.
to 30 plus, you know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
But like it's the variable of it is, can you take those sets to near failure?
Right.
That is the more important tidbit to hypertrophy as a whole. So,
You know what's crazy? Because progressive overload is a big thing, right?
Yep.
In building muscle and everything. I went to a fitness expo, and I went up to Jay Cutler, and I asked him, one of the top bodybuilders ever with
Yep.
freaking swole. I asked him, how important really is progressive overload? And he's like, it's not really that important.
I would respectfully disagree with that.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, so what would be the secret? And he's just like you said, near failure with like all your most of your sets, but do a lot of sets. So he's a big volume
But
guy.
in that context, that is progressive overload because
what I thought.
because
Yeah,
if
for
you
sure.
say Jay's doing 14 sets of chest,
I'm sure he was doing like less before.
you know what I
that
mean?
got
Exactly.
him up to that
Yep.
point, and that's
that
progressive
is a
overload.
form of progressive overload right there. So
Yeah.
he answered it. He answered his own question incorrectly, but it's still bringing home the importance of progressive overload.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
know
think
what I
it's just
mean?
indirectly. Like some people are so caught up in like the numbers. Like, okay, I have to hit this number, this amount. Maybe him. It's just like he's doing it.
It was more loose
indirectly.
ended.
Right. He was
but-
going by feel, but you know that he was doing more over time. He just wasn't keeping track of it that much.
I think, like people are very caught up in the data in that sense with trying to understand every variable possible. And I would argue that is still very important because we have to monitor
For sure.
progression in some way, shape, or form. We have to monitor fatigue in some way, shape, or form. And so if we don't have the data to go back and say, okay, why am I trending down in my numbers? How are we going to make changes?
Right.
So I think the data is actually very important, but I think it's also important to not get too caught up on just chasing the data unless
Right,
you're,
for sure.
your goal is to work in this perfect vacuum, like you're in a laboratory and you're trying
right,
to,
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
trying to find that 1%, you know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
for us in the gym, it's not, I would argue it's not as important.
Right. Because what's crazy is I started off as like, not counting anything. We don't know much when we start in the gym, right? No progressive overload. You just pump iron basically, right? And you fall in love with that. And that's what got me to lifting. And then when I became a trainer, I got more concerned about the numbers and everything. And so I felt like it became a chore and I didn't feel that passion as much as I used to. And
Sure.
so I started just lifting again and not really worrying about
I think it's
the sets
important
too
to
much.
take some breaks from that sometimes too,
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
kind of go in and freestyle. Like I have my training, I write out for generally about 8 to 12 months at a time, and
For yourself?
for myself and my clients.
Okay.
So, my plan is in place, but there's times where, like you were saying, like the motivation might not be there, and
Right,
I might
right.
do a couple days of kind of some freestyling.
Yeah.
Maybe staying in the general rep ranges and volume that
sure,
I'm looking
for
at,
sure,
but like
yeah.
in terms of just like the exercise selection and the split for the week or something, I might just
Yeah.
freestyle that a little bit, because that brings in those older memories of when you first got into lifting.
Exactly.
And you were just like, I'm just gonna go clang and bang weight and get the pump that I was
That's
looking
me.
for.
You said,
Yeah.
I'm still there.
That is me.
Yeah, I've never left.
I don't sit there and say, "Oh, well, I got to do this many times." I just go. I'm going to the gym. I go and I lift. Period. I don't look at numbers. I don't.
He just remembers. Like I did 3 plates last week. I'm gonna do 4 today.
That's it. You know. Oh, that was pretty heavy. I think I can go heavier.
I would say that can be applicable for some people if you know that your exercise selection is generally pretty small. Like if it's like I have my core 6 or 7 lifts that I do, it's very easy to keep a memory of that. You know what I mean? And you go off a feel like, yeah, I did 3 plates for 10 last week, and
That's what it is. You know, it's something I've done for so long. I kind of like know. You know
your body. You've been training for how long you've been training for now.
You know, it's you know the way things are now. You know, talking to this guy is just crazy. You know, he'll go through this whole thing with me, and I'm like thinking in my head, you know, God, just lift, dude.
Yeah,
that's how I see it. You know, because that's the way I've come up.
Sure. I like to do, if I'm going to go in the context of what you were saying with my clientele, I do all of that on the back end. So when I do see them, I just tell them to go lift. You know what I mean? So that's where like I have a training app to write everything in. I do all my programming on an Excel sheet, and I transfer it over to a training app. So when they come into the gym, they have their program on their phone, and all they know to do is just lift. So it's like, I did all the work for you.
Right. That's what we're supposed to do.
You just go and have fun. We lift. You know what I mean?
I learned a lot from you, bro.
Hey, I appreciate you, bro.
So then, that's how you work with your clients a lot. Then it's just kind of maybe lay out their plan, their program, have them come in. And you said something that caught my. So you like lay out? Do you lay out their program for 8 to 12 months?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. So there's a couple reasons why I like to do it.
Yeah.
One, when you're just working with someone for the first time, and you know they're telling you, "Hey, I want to commit to training."
Yeah.
I think it's very important from the trainer side to go in and say, "I'm going to commit to you just as much."
Yeah.
I wrote a plan for 10 months for you.
Right.
So you're going to see it from day one till that last day, 300 days later, whatever that is, what we're doing. Yeah. And so the adherence is going to go through the roof. I've just learned that over time. Second, I don't have the time in my day and week to sit and just update programs like every week or every month. Like I'd rather just spend a 2-hour period on one person when my mind is consistently on what their goals are and what they're trying to do. Right. And I can just look at it on the computer screen and say, I'm not going to worry about anyone else but this person for this time. And I'm going to write everything down and see the progression of that over time, because there's certain things I like to do with people, like with all clientele. I'm a big advocate of everyone should be able to do a chin up. Everyone, my men, my women, my females in their late 60s, like I do chin up progressions with them all the time. So
we have discussions about chin ups too.
Such as?
Yeah.
Mike just wants me to say that Mike is good at chin ups.
Yeah, because he always challenges them.
I don't challenge you. I don't like people to tell me I can't do something. And so.
And he's what? How old are you now? You're like 78?
No, I'm 67.
Oh, you're 67.
But you're right. And I just said everybody should be able to do chin up.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because if they can't, it's because they're not working the right muscles to be able to do that.
There's also a massive skill component in the movement of the chin up itself. If you were to take someone who's never done a chin up before and you just say, hang on the bars and do it, it's interesting to see what they do with their body to try to get just anything other than just like a straight arm. They're just trying to pull a little bit. The motion that happens with the body is so different for everyone.
Yeah.
So
is that like a test you run on a lot of clients? Just like hang and.
So I'll do generally like if they are able to do a chin up already by the time they come in and see me, we'll do a rep effort of chin ups, and I'll get it on film to see what is happening at the body from the posterior view and the lateral view. So I'll get 2 angles of that. And then if I work with someone that has never done one before, if they somewhat have some strength qualities to hold themselves, we just do an isometric hold at the top. So I put a box up under them, and so you're going to grab on the bars and hang on for dear life. Yeah. And I'm just going to time it. So that's the second one. And then the third, if they do not have the strength to even do the hold, I'll grab a TRX and have them do an endurance effort with the TRX chin up. So you're kind of just sitting on the ground to start, and you're just pulling vertically that way.
Yeah.
So we're still doing the movement pattern itself, and they're understanding what is needed, to do the actual rep itself. So I have kind of a tier system of what I work with. And I tell them my goal is to get you to do body weight chin ups for reps, depending on where they're starting at. So that goes back into the plan. Say I'm working with someone that is just doing those TRX chin ups, and they can get 5 of them. I'm like, hey, by December, it's July right now. I want you to be able to get on those bars and do a single rep hold. Here's the plan I have for you to do that. So, if someone's discouraged in that sense, like, damn, I can only do the TRX chin up. Like, that sucks. That lights a fire under their ass to say, hey, like, I have the tools now to do it. I just need to show up. So I love, that was something that I focused on a lot in grad school, was, just periodization and writing these programs out for a long period of time. So it was a big ask from all the, sport coaches I worked with when I was a GA, was I need a plan. I want to know what you're doing with my athletes, because I'm either not in the weight room or I'm in, and I want to know why you put all these things up. What are you going to do next? What are you going to do in season? That was a big thing with track and field, but track and field at Fullerton is very successful. They are regularly winning conference, and sending athletes to, NCAA championships, and, they want to know the plan because they write their plans out for a very long time too. So it was really important to meet that with them. So really, took home the importance of just writing things out for a long period of time.
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit more about that, though, about how, that helps with your adherence, you said, because I feel like as coaches, teaching them how to exercise, teaching them nutrition is the easy part, but the hard part is having them to adhere to all this stuff, right? Like building habits. Like, what do you think, what other ways do you do that would help adherence for coaching?
I think having things on a phone is super important. The training on the training app, logging the nutrition if they really want to get into the numbers. Do you want to focus on the nutrition side?
We do both.
Okay.
I'm down for both.
Okay, the nutrition side, I will definitely start with like a 3 to 5 day food diary. I want to see what they're doing.
Right.
I want to see what time of the day they're eating. I want to see how much water they're drinking. So for me to just see what their habits are, if they're inconsistently eating and their food choices might be heavily favored on like one meal of the day because their job is so stressful. I'm like, okay, we're going to attack that first. Let's start to understand the importance of,
being conscious, being
consistency,
self-conscious of what they're doing.
Exactly. What are you putting on your plate? What does the portions look like on your plate? And that's why the precision nutrition stuff that I did was really awesome to not only teach them about the importance of the macro and micronutrients, but how to mentally approach that. There's a lot to be said about the environment that they're in. Their family history, like what they ate as a kid, what their spouse eats.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the first thing I tell someone is like, if you have bad things in the pantry, get it out. Just get it out, because if it's in the house, you're going to eat it. So, I try to go about that in the smallest steps possible.
For sure.
Because people have such a relationship with food. Right. It's a coping mechanism. It's a place of comfort.
It's emotional.
It's a therapist. You know what I mean? Like, I'm having a rough day at work.
Yeah.
That meal that probably isn't so good for me is going to make me feel much better. And my goal is to make that change to where when I go to do my training, it's going to make me feel better. And not so much on the food side. And I understand that, and get them to understand that food is a tool to make them train better.
Exactly.
And the byproduct of all of that is the physique changes.
Feel better and
and all of the, the cardiovascular and muscular changes that happen from it, So when you start to teach it that way, the light goes off. They're like, dude, I'm in now.
Man.
Okay. Yeah. Those small changes do make a difference, though.
Sure.
Like, I'm a big believer, too, of, like, just kind of changing your environment. Like, for example, if they have bags of chips on the table every time, put it somewhere you can't see it.
Sure.
And that mentally that does
little,
something.
I mean, even things like putting your fork down between bites and taking time to chew, because if you're taking your time to chew, your body's better able to break the food down. As you're chewing, that is a big variable for the signals of fullness to come in. So if we're taking our time to chew the food more.
I did not even think about that.
Me neither.
Yeah,
We have our signals for hunger.
Yeah.
We go and get our stuff. If we're in a hurry and we're just hucking food down, we're not taking the time to process it and understand that this is a dedicated time to refuel and recharge. There's going to be a point where sometimes that food that you eat, you're not going to feel super full. And there's the 80% rule. It's you eat till you're 80% full. And that should be your time to stop, because generally if you're doing the things to to chew and to appreciate the food that's in front of you, when you go and finally finish it, you're okay, I'm good. You're not going to want to jump in.
Yeah, you're not going to overeat.
Yeah, and your body's telling you now you're
Okay.
getting those feelings of fullness. Your satiety goes up now. So that's where it's important to understand the hormones that are in play there are there for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't want to discredit that in any way.
Right. For sure.
Well, that's crazy, man. Dalton, I like you a lot, man. You good?
Thank you. Guys.
Where can people find you personally to work with you, connect with you? Where do?
Yeah, so
your shameless plug?
let's go Instagram, Train with Dalton PT, all one word. I try to use that as an educational platform. So it's never my training in a day. It's I want to teach. My goal is for someone to go on my account and learn something every time they leave it. So that is my resource for teaching, is on there. And my business for small group and one-on-one is out of a private gym over near Hoag Hospital, Newport Beach. So if anyone's interested in training, you can reach out via social media in that sense, or the website trainwithdaltonpt.com. I'll do regular blog posts on there, and my Instagram is linked too, so in case you want to see some content that's on there.
There you go.
And yeah, that's it.
Oh man, well thank you so much, Dalton, dude. I really, really love it. Love hearing the aspects that you bring to the fitness world. Glad that you are a great example of what you preach and whatnot. So thank you, Long.
I mean, you changed me. So, I've been around. So, I like a lot of stuff that we talked about.
Appreciate it.
I understand a lot of things that we talked about and stuff. And I might look you up, man.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any final words, Kyle?
No, I got my questions, and we'll probably have you back in here, in the future.
Man, imagine both him and Jack here at the same time.
That would be.
Oh,
that'd be
man, I
crazy.
don't know. We're going to have to do a 3-hour
I was
segment.
gonna say it needs to be at least 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Jack and I will just talk and talk and talk.
Right.
I love it.
We gotta extend this table too.
Yep.
I love it. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, this was Dalton Sherwood. You can catch him on the socials.
Yes, sir.
I'm Coach Cisco. That's Coach Mike. This is Coach Kyle, by the way. We'll catch you on the next episode.
All right, see you later.